Um, Lee Purcell, welcome to Journey of an Aesthete podcast.
So nice to be here. Thank you for having me, Mitch.
I usually do a little blurb in front, and so I'm going to say you are a major actor, a long career, going back to the 70s, I believe, right? Until the present.
Yeah, unless you want to go back to when I was a child. And
well, if you want to, we can, but I don't know about that as much as well. But anyhow, it's we happy to have you and happy that you take the time to discuss your career, your work, your life. I did want to say originally the idea was to do an almost summer episode, right?
Yes.
Just about that one movie. But
sure.
It occurs to me that one of my you're actually in two of my favorite movies. The other one, of course, is Valley Girl, which you're just finished celebrating
the 40th
anniversary. Do you want to start in the present and start talking about that anniversary, or how you felt about that, or what impressions before we?
Well, it was it was really fun, really fun. None of us can believe it's been 40 years because how did that happen? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But we had, and I have to credit one person, Heidi Holliker, who's my dear and good. She played Stacy in Valley Girl, and she's my dear and good friend. And
she's a great actress.
She's a great actress, but she has since become a producer.
Mm-hmm.
And she decided that we should have these celebrations. And so it was all her, I have to say.
Really? Huh.
It was all her. It was nobody else. And she worked on it for months in addition to her very busy job and career. And she was the one that got the 40th anniversary into the Chinese theater.
Yeah.
The TLC Chinese theater, which used to be called Grauman's. A lot of people still call it that because it's been that for 100 years or something.
It's a habit. I call it that.
You know what? I do too. I try not to, but I can't help it. You know, it's Grauman's, but it's not TLC, TLC or TCL Chinese theater, right? And she made that happen. Very hard on, and she also we had 2 reunions in 1 week, 1 day apart.
Yeah. One at the New Beverly, right?
Sorry?
Weren't you at the New Beverly? Wasn't it the other one? Or was
yes, the first was the Chinese. That was on Thursday night, a week ago tonight. And then the second was at Quentin's theater, Quentin Tarantino's theater in the New Beverly, and which is a smaller theater.
It is smaller.
A bit more intense, I think. I mean, I think the audience is a bit more intense.
When you say more intense, was it even talks about the audience was more enthusiastic about the picture, or more?
Oh, both audiences are like insanely enthusiastic about it. Right. But I think that the Chinese is more formal and more, I don't know, more of a cultural thing. And then the New Bev, and it's twice as big as the New Bev. And then the New Bev audience is more of really intense film buffs and historians and that sort of thing. A very, very different audience. And we just all had a lot of fun. It was really, really crazy because over 20 of us from the film, from all different categories of the film, were there. People flew in from other states. And if you remember the scene I have with David.
Oh, yes.
whose character's name was Skip. He flew in from some really far away state. It was great to see him.
That's an amazing scene. I mean, if you don't mind, I wanted to talk. I mean, hearing you talk about this, I mean, Martha Coolidge is an amazing filmmaker. I mean, just really think about, if you think about Rambling Rose and think about her work, and even the early stuff like Joy of Sex is really good. And
sure.
Did you want to talk about her uniqueness as a director, or her approach to that film? I know that's a big topic, but I don't know what.
It's a really big topic. You know, we could spend a whole hour just on that.
Yeah.
She is a very important director, and I told this story at the Chinese that when we all took turns, speaking, and I had at that point never worked with a female director.
Oh,
never, and it just wasn't, it wasn't very common.
Right.
It's still not common enough, but then it was really,
Really not common. Yeah.
really quite rare. So the way, I mean, it's interesting because there's two generations of actors in that film.
That's true.
There's my generation, you know, who play, and we played the parents, teachers, and the
Colleen Camp and Frederick Forrest, boy,
Colleen and Fred and Colleen's
great actors.
I just, yeah, I know them both for all this time. And Colleen I knew before, because Colleen and I were in acting class together.
Oh wow!
Yeah, very young. And then there's all the, I call them the kids. They're all now in their 60s, right? But forever remember them as, you know, the Valley Girl kids, and now they're all, you know, older, and we've kind of evened out. So, you know, we're all friends, and we were I was talking about, because the way that they were cast was through a traditional route of auditioning, right? The way that we were cast was through friends.
Interesting.
And everybody just called everybody, like Colleen Camp called me up one day, and we were laughing about this at the Chinese, and or maybe the New Bev, I don't know. It all blends because it's 2 days. So Colleen called me up one day and said, hey, you know, do you want to do this movie? And I said, tell me about it. And she told me about it. I said, you know, I don't know, you know, maybe, do you have a script? You know, and she said, yeah. And I said, well, let me read the script. And she said, well, there's no money. I went, oh, well, that's really tempting. Not. And she said, but it's a female director. I was like, whoa, a female director. Now that is interesting.
Oh, yeah.
And so because I didn't know Martha Coolidge. She'd done like nothing. And
well, to be fair, she'd done some really good documentary work, of course.
Yeah, but I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I mean, you
know,
I'm an actress. I'm a documentarian, and although two of my best friends are major documentarians, but not at that time. And so that was Joy of Sex came after Valley Girl.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it came after, because we were discussing that. So I wasn't familiar with her. But the idea of a female director was pretty thrilling.
Sure.
And for me, that was the pull, because there was no money. It wasn't the money. And it was a shoestring budget, and I wasn't.
That's amazing to hear that, because I mean, I have to say, it's not that the movie is slick. Well, it is slick. I mean, in a way, what I'm saying is I'm complimenting. I'm saying you would never know to look at that picture that it wasn't a high budget.
$300,000.
That's amazing.
And all of the,
because it looks so good and it's so well shot, and
I know it was kind of like, my dad has a barn, let's put on a show.
Amazing.
It was like that kind of mentality, which none of us, the older people, and we were actually very young at the time, but not as young as the young people, right? But none of us had ever worked like that. You know, we had done big budget films with major directors, and Fred had done Apocalypse Now. Colleen was in Apocalypse Now. You know, I had done Big Wednesday. We had all done like big pictures, right? And so this was kind of like, oh, this might be fun. It was guerrilla filmmaking, and all the clothes that you see came from all of our closets. There was no wardrobe. I mean, we just kind of went through like, can I wear that? You know, can I look? And Colleen would throw stuff at me and going, how about this? And yeah, that was the way it was.
And that may be part of what I'm responding to, is maybe it's a document of the era. So it's a sense, and of course, all the great location shooting in Los Angeles, like the rock clubs, and there is a kind of an excitement of shooting on location.
There is, but all the homes and everything, and some of the shops, and it was friends. It was friends' houses and friends' businesses and friends' offices. I mean, obviously not the club scene. That was actually at the Viper Room, or what became the Viper.
Right.
You know, the notorious but Viper Room. And I'm trying to think.
Was Fred Elms is the DP on that?
Yeah, Fred Elms. Oh my gosh,
beautiful, just beautiful.
I mean, he's just a beautiful shooter, and yeah. So it was very much word of mouth, and we had no rehearsal. I mean, we were laughing because
Right.
the younger people were talking about, oh, and Martha rehearsed us for 2 weeks, and we did this, and we were just laughing like we just showed up on the set. We didn't have any rehearsal. And, it just, I mean, I think Colleen had some, but it was like in her house or Martha's, I don't know. And then I had none. I mean, I just showed up and did the scene, and David and I, who played Skip,
Right.
in that pool scene, we were talking about it. It was like, he arrived and I arrived. It was, hello, this is David Inser. Hi, this is Lee Purcell. We shot.
It's amazing.
I mean, we did you do a walkthrough blocking and, run the lines, but there was no rehearsal. And then the party scene, there was a rehearsal for that because
and things like
but it was not prior to, it was the day of, and which is what I'm used to. I'm used to having no rehearsal. You rarely get any rehearsal. For Almost Summer, the other movie, that was a different.
You can see behind me, I've got my there you are, jumping there is the cheerleader.
Yeah, we're there in the way
back
corner to your far right.
That's such a great poster, though.
It's a great poster. Oh my gosh, I remember that.
Bring back memories. Well, I guess I want to cover radio. So much to cover because you're a scholar of radio, right? You become a scholar of early radio, and of course, I want to get a little bit of your origins as an actor, starting out. What influences or early productions, if you want to talk a little bit. But before we leave Valley Girl, anything else you want to say about that production? I mean, this in itself is interesting because it looks like she used a different approach based on generations or age.
I think because we were even though we were 30s, right? We were veterans,
right?
And the kids, now in their 60s, right? They were new. For most of them, it was their first film.
Interesting.
For most of us, it was like our 5th or a 10th or whatever, right? And we've been doing it for a long, long time. And of course, now they are veterans. Yeah. So it's very interesting how things shift and change. But no, it was just, we had a great time I haven't posted my pictures yet because I have so many of them.
I look forward to seeing those.
Yeah, they're really.
As somebody experienced, as somebody who's worked on a project like that, film like that, part of it, what do you think are the qualities that makes that film, in my view, timeless? That people all these years, it's 80s, but the 80s-ness of it takes a backseat to the timelessness, and people still do. What do you think about, if you had to come to mind, what its staying power, you think, or is it?
I think because it's a film, it's Romeo and Juliet.
Mm-hmm.
It's about your first love.
I see.
And I think that everybody has that story in their heart. Huh. And I think this was so well made about that topic that I think that's why. And then also the score. I mean, my God.
Great songs.
One of the best
scores ever. Yeah.
Ever. And Josie Cotton was a lot of the musicians were at the reunion, which was great. Really great. And I think the script, which was written by Wayne Crawford, late Wayne Crawford, and Andy Lane, and tweaked, by Martha. And I think it's all those factors. And sometimes, Mitch, you just don't know. I mean, I've done
mystery, right? The mystery factor.
You don't know. I mean,
you probably didn't know. I mean, when you made Mr. Majestic, to name another great film, you probably didn't know it would be everybody's favorite Bronson picture. That would, maybe you did know, but No,
I did. No, I didn't know. And that's a whole other story as to how I came to be in that, because I had turned it down because I had something else I wanted. I had a different offer I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And then and so I turned it down.
Yeah.
And I loved, I've done a couple of interviews about this actually recently, but I don't know why, but so because you look at it and you go, wait a minute, it was Elmer Leonard, the great writer. It was Walter Mirisch, the great producer.
Yeah.
It was Richard Fleischer, the director, and you turned it down.
Yeah, they thought
because I had this other
the cast, Al
and Charlie, and I thought that there's other thing I wanted to do, which I'm just going to let remain nameless, but I wanted to do it, and sometimes you make a mistake, in what you say yes to and what you say no to.
Okay.
And so I got into the other project, which was having rehearsals.
Oh, interesting.
Like I said, and I realized, oh my God, this is not going to work.
Oh, wow.
So I called my agent.
Wow.
And said, I don't want to do this. I want to do Mr. Majestic. And he said, oh boy, I don't know about that, and I said, well, I'm going to call Walter Mirisch. And actresses were not encouraged to do things like that, putting it politely. So I did. I called Walter Mirisch, and much against my agent's wishes. Agent at the time, he's like, no, God, don't do that. And I'm like, I think it would be best if I did, because Walter was the one who had approached me about doing the film. He was the one that I said, I'm sorry, I can't do it. I'm going to do this other thing. I mean, the whole conversation had been with Walter.
Right.
So I did call Walter, and coincidentally, he was at the studio, and he was auditioning other actors to play my role.
Right.
And I said, Mr. Mirisch, I decided I want to do Mr. Majestic. And what do you think? And he's like, I think that'd be great. But I am auditioning these other actresses right now. And I said, oh, I don't want to, step on anybody's toes. I don't, because, I don't want to hurt other actresses. And he said, no, I really want you to do this film. I'm just going to tell them the truth.
Oh, yeah.
And tell them thank you, and I'll have them in again and whatever. And he said, but can you get over here? And I said, yeah, sure. And so I drove over there. The other actresses had left, and we just sat and we talked about, I don't know, the role, and we were all supposed to go to Colorado, which we did, to shoot and stay in this very remote area.
Yeah.
And anyway, I ended up doing it. And
it's interesting to hear as an outsider like myself, or a fan. I study these films. I mean, but I'm not. You often think about people that play heavies like Al Lettieri.
Al
Lettieri. Isn't it common that sometimes the biggest heavies are the sweethearts, or the ones that play villains? Is that
no, it's so incredibly true.
Yeah.
Al was a very wonderful man, and I'm still friends with his widow, and I know his kid.
Yeah.
She had a daughter later with another husband after Al passed away very unexpectedly and very prematurely. And
Charles Bronson, right, was very classy and very.
Charlie was
person.
The sweetest,
yeah,
nice. I mean, just quiet, soft-spoken. He came to that location with all of his kids. I don't know how many he had, 4 or 5.
Right.
And his wife. And he spent his time with the family, and he would be out throwing a Frisbee, with his kids. And then we would go shoot a scene where, he was killing people. And then he would go back out with the kids, be, playing ball or Frisbee or something. So I think that's true. And then some of the meanest people I've ever worked with, who all shall remain nameless, play some of the
leads of the.
Well, some of the nicest roles.
Yeah.
Nice, sweet, kind, and they're not. Although you also get people who are sweet playing sweet roles, and you also get people who are kind of mean playing mean roles. But Al and Charlie were both just really great guys. Really great guys.
It's amazing. I mean, of course I want to go back to the beginnings about your start in acting and performing. What was that journey like? Was it? I assumed it started with theater, right, or
No, actually not. No, my family moved a lot when I was very young, and I was born in North Carolina on a Marine base, and then things happened, um, and anyway, so just cut that part out.
Yeah.
So I was born in North Carolina on a Marine base, and then the family was reassembled, so to speak, and so then my mother later remarried after my father died, a Navy doctor
Interesting.
who was servicing the Marines because my father was a Marine fighter pilot, and um, Navy and the Marines don't have their own doctors, so it's always Navy doctors who are assigned to the Marines. I have no idea why.
Uh-huh.
So my mother remarried, and her second husband was a Navy doctor, and we moved, and we moved, and we moved, and moved some more, and I don't even remember. I think it's 9 places, I think,
Wow.
before I was 6, and I was very used to that. I actually liked it.
You like the nomadic,
I did. I liked the nomadic
Mhm.
lifestyle because that's what I was used to.
Right.
And then, so we were living in Dallas,
Huh.
and and I got my first gig. I was 3,
Huh.
and I was a toddler model for the Neiman Marcus flagship store.
Which is Texan based. Oh, that's very
Yeah, it's massive. It's still there. It's still huge. So I got my first paying gig there,
wow.
and I had been already taking dance lessons. I mean, my life was pretty preordained, and
You started off in modeling, I would assume, or doing these kind of gigs with Neiman Marcus, and
yeah,
as very young, yeah, as a child, and
3. I was 3.
3. So I guess that's your beginning before
That
speaking.
was my beginning. Was
Yeah.
was then, although I was already taking dance classes, and I don't think I was taking piano yet. I think I started when I was 5. But and then
That's
we
kind
moved.
of an unusual question that occurs to me. Just because I don't know, is somebody like yourself who has a deep background in dance? I mean, I'm thinking maybe there are actors that don't have that. Is there a does that help one's acting? I mean, I know it's having that athletic or dance experience. Is that
I you
do
know,
you think
I
that
think so. I mean, I have a big dance number in Almost Summer, you may remember. I think that, well, actors come from a lot of different backgrounds. I
right?
mean, a lot. And I think that dance and singing, I'm only a moderate singer,
Mhm.
but dance was my life, for a very long time. And I think that the more the more you can do, the better, because I was experimenting from a very early age with many art forms.
Oh, okay.
And I think that a lot of actors are like that. And
Okay.
because I was dancing, I was singing, I was playing musical instruments, I was doing photography, I was
Huh.
painting, I was choreographing, I was designing, I was whatever and what I just all because I think I was trying to like,
Very well rounded, though. I guess
yeah,
I'm hoping that surely must play a role in your performances, or what? I mean, it must have an big influence.
I think it I think it helps
Yeah.
in many ways. I think anything you do to prepare you for the life that you end up with is, is very helpful. I know that, having been a dancer, I think gave me a certain fluidity and a certain discipline. And and I think that being a photographer, gave me a certain kind of exterior viewpoint
Interesting.
of a scene, of a set. And I think people who are great singers, which I am not, I think
Sure,
that,
you're halfway decent, though. I can tell you that. I mean,
well,
I had to guess, but
I'd say about a quarter decent. But I think that that helps. I
sure.
think that anything that you do helps to inform your life.
Right.
It doesn't define your life, but it informs your life. And so and then we moved again from Dallas, and we moved. to Millington, to the naval base, which is just outside of Memphis.
Wow.
And somehow I got on this TV variety show.
Oh.
And I don't know how
any of those, right, in the 60s and 70s, right? That was a very
it was very but this was regional. Remember, this is Memphis.
But it wasn't like you were on the Barry Chase show or something.
No, I wish. I wish. Oh, yeah, I do wish. But no, that this was a local, it was a regional, small,
interesting,
corny, variety show.
Wow.
But it was great because, and I don't know how I got on it. I know I started when I was 5, and I did it sporadically until I was 13. And I did anything, they would.
I envy you folks that start early. I'm a pianist, I got my piano here.
Oh, nice. Nice.
That's when I started. I started at like too late, like age 8, 9, like way after everybody else. And so I always envy the people that I did this at 4 or 5. So
I think any 8 or 9, come on, that's still a baby. I mean,
well, but I'm saying it's still.
I started playing piano at, I don't know, 5, 6, or 7, around there, and I'm nowhere at your level, nowhere.
No, but what I guess the only reason why I bring it up, and I mean, some people say age doesn't matter, but envy is probably not the right word. I'm very impressed when people get a real early start like you did and what you're doing, because you're kind of you're already doing TV variety show at a young age.
About 5, and
it's amazing to me.
But it wasn't like a great, fabulous show. It was corny. It was bizarre. But they let me do, which was really great, whatever I wanted.
Oh.
And so, I mean, the first thing I did was read a poem. I was 5. And then I progressed, and I would sing, or I would choreograph a number and design the costumes, and I would do that. And and so it just kind of snowballed from there. Hold on. Allergy.
It's allergy season for everybody, all of us. So.
Just don't include my coughing.
Yeah.
Let me get a cough drop.
All right. We were just discussing
I'm walking away.
How intense the allergies are this season. So
Okay, sorry, I had to go search for a cough drop.
All right.
I don't want to take it this whole time. Just what do you want to talk about? What do you want to hear about?
Well, I mean, of course, I wanted to ask about continuing your story, how you got into speaking parts from television, and I mean from the variety show forward, of course. So.
Well, I mean, that was just, I was just a kid.
Right.
And there were no roles. They were just performances and numbers. Right. And then when I was 13, my school had a fabulous a music teacher who was more than a music teacher. He was just this creative force.
Uh-huh.
And he knew what I was. Okay. And he formed this company, a traveling company.
Huh.
And there were, I don't know, maybe 8 or 10 of us in it. And we toured all over the South, the Mid-South, Midwest, all over that. And, you know, we were still kids, and he let me, I was in the quartet. I was in the singing trio. I was,
Wow.
I mean, I played clarinet in the quartet, and I sang in the trio, and I tried to not sing very loud because I don't want anybody to hear me because I'm not that good. And then he let me choreograph whatever number I wanted to choreograph and design costumes. And, you know, I did that until I graduated high school. I tried to graduate at 16 because I was so anxious to start life. And I was actually stopped by the authorities and by school authorities because I was 16. You know, I was a minor. But when I was 17, you know, I stayed there another year. When I was 17,
Do you mind if I ask about that? Was that because there was restrictions in terms of who can work perform and because of age, or was that
well, you know, when you're a minor, you can't just leave.
Right.
I wanted to just leave home.
Oh, I see. You wanted to.
You know, I just wanted to go, and I worked really hard.
Sure, of course.
To get all of my required courses done, which I did. I worked really hard. And then I was stopped, not allowed to graduate because I was too young.
Wow.
But when I was 17, still not 18, they couldn't stop me anymore because I had done everything. There was just like nothing left for me to do.
Right.
And so I was allowed to graduate. And then through a very circuitous kind of route, you know, a minute and a half in college, and then working as a maid, you know, a big resort. And I finally ended up in California where I wanted to be since I was a kid, and ended up here. And then
amazing.
And then went back, and then I thought I was going to dance to earn a living, and then I was in a horrible automobile accident.
Oh,
I'm okay.
Yeah.
And then until I could recover. So then somebody said, you know, you're tall and you look pretty good. Why don't you model? And so I went back to modeling for like the biggest agency in on the whole West Coast, and did that. And then was taking acting class, singing class, dance class. I mean, everything. And, you know, how to act in film, which is different than what I was doing in the little small time things I was doing. And then Steve McQueen came along and
I'll be done
and saved my life.
Wow.
Basically. And that was, you know, that was my moment. Everybody has a moment, I think.
Well, I mean, to have Steve McQueen be your mentor, who your
my mentor.
That's
I know, yeah, it was something.
I mean, no, he was a remarkable person, and just
remarkable.
I mean, I know we don't have all the time in the world, but maybe a few minutes. When you remember Steve McQueen, what comes to your mind immediately when you think about him? I mean,
well, he I mean, of course, everybody can read. There's multitudinous books about him. I'm in some of the books.
Right.
There's documentaries, there's movies he was, you know, he starred in, and there was a movie being made about his life, and he was just larger than life, you know. But he was, I don't know what to say about him. I mean, I've done entire interviews, you know, just about him.
Right.
And because he was so remarkable, you know, he came from nothing, and, you know, ended up in Boys Town, you know, for wayward boys.
Right.
And he just invented himself. And he was supremely gifted.
Yeah.
Both as an actor and a producer and as a director. And if he could have lived longer, he only lived to be 50.
Yeah.
Yeah, 50. And I think he would have become, you know, one of the primo directors then, because he just had an instinct. And
I agree with that. I mean, I sometimes think that had he lived, he would have ended up being like a Clint Eastwood, possibly, maybe.
I think so.
In terms of directing ability, right?
I think so. I mean, they're around the same age. Steve was a little bit older.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think he would have done that. He just had these instincts, and hard worker, really hard worker, hard player. And he was really, he changed my life. He
Wow.
really changed my life. I was nobody from nowhere. And
Huh.
he saw something. I mean, there's lots of things online that he said about me, and you can research those, but he he really he really took a chance on me, and because I was nobody.
Uh-huh.
Nobody. I mean, I had one line in a real TV show, one
Right.
line, and I had done a couple of commercials. I had modeled, and I was real skinny, and I was under contract to Screen Gems, but when I signed that contract, I said, "You gotta put in a clause because I've already been auditioning for this movie for Steve McQueen," and they did. They were wonderful. And so then because it took 5 auditions and a screen test, and then when I got the job, then I was able to say to Screen Gems, I got that job, and they released me, and it was great. And no, that just great, and he and I we were really kindred spirits. He was like a father. He was my parents' age.
Interesting.
So
Huh.
I looked at him as, this older person and for guidance,
Wow.
and he knew I knew like nothing. And so he talked to me all the time about many things, how to save money and how to act on a set and how
Interesting.
to do these scenes and how to employ actors business, which is things you do in a role. And
Huh.
just all kinds of things, because we really had a similar, we both left home very, very early. We both were rebels, and I rode motorcycles. He loved that. Of course, he rode motorcycles, and
Yeah.
I liked fast cars, even though I couldn't afford one, but I would ride in his fast car, and so it was great. He
Smart.
he truly changed my life, truly did. So I always will be, always, grateful to him.
That's it's interesting because now you're in a stage of career right now where you're going all the way back to the very early art form of radio, right?
Yes.
So that's something a lot of, I'm sure, our younger viewers might not know a lot about, or might not, they don't know about War of the Worlds, or
You'd be
well,
surprised.
they
You
do.
you would well, it's very interesting, So my producing partner, Michael Carnegie, who's a wonderful actor, um, we have been surprised because we've been doing Hollywood radio players for almost a year.
Okay.
And our first show debuted in last September, but it took us a long time to figure out because we wanted to do, it's a long story. I'll make it short though, but we wanted to benefit a charity.
Uh-huh.
And so we benefit Motion Picture and Television Fund, which is one of our 3 major industry charities that helps people in the entertainment industry. And you can only imagine what has happened to those charities in the past 3 years, the
Yeah.
pandemic, right? Tough times. And so we wanted to benefit a charity, and because I'm a union activist, and I
Yes.
was already doing a lot of work with
Yeah.
MPTF, Motion Picture and Television Fund, and so we are looking around at different charities, and all the members of our group,
Mhm.
and it just seemed to be a great fit. And then when I approached them about it, coincidentally, it was, this was last year, the 100th year of Motion Picture and Television Fund's existence. So here we come with, classic radio plays from golden age of radio. And it's just a perfect fit. And
Absolutely.
it's amazing, right?
Yeah.
And so we invented this medium, which is a Zoom hybrid format,
Interesting.
but we have special effects and sound effects
Oh,
and
wow.
music and costumes, and you only see us from the chest up, right?
Mhm.
But you forget that when you're watching it.
Fantastic.
You really forget it. And so we just we're posting in a couple of days, our ninth show. And then we have a whole slew of them planned. And Tom Berenger has been our host. Sorry, say that again. Tom Bergeron.
Tom Bergeron, okay.
Has been our host, but now he's got a movie he's doing with William Shatner. So he's off doing the movie, right? Yeah. So now we have Lisa Gibbons, who is incredible. They're both incredible. And so we just filmed Lisa just a couple of days ago. She was great, and Tom's wonderful. And so we've been really, really blessed with the people who are in our group, and then with our hosts. And it's a huge amount of work, I gotta say, like hundreds and hundreds of hours. And it's been a massive learning curve, both for us and MPTF, because nothing like this, because we do a monthly show. And doing a show a month.
That's a lot.
Of anything is a lot, right? Yeah. And but we're kind of learning as we go, but it's great because all of us love classic radio. I love classic radio. And I had worked with Orson Welles.
Whoa.
I did a movie with Orson Welles.
Which one?
It's not a good movie, but I worked with Orson Welles. I can say that. It was when we shot the movie, it was the Toy Factory. Then it became Necromancy. Then it became... It's got like 5 or 6 different titles, depending.
That's like the F for Fake era, right? A little bit like that period.
Yeah. So,
but it's not F for Fake. It's not as good.
No. But
amazing.
But so I had worked with Orson, and I had already in film history class I had studied Orson's work, right? Yeah. And then I had a vinyl record of the War of the Worlds.
I had that. My dad had that same record.
I don't know where mine is. It's
Well, I lost. That's one of the ones I lost when my dad passed. He grew up listening to that Mercury Theater, right?
I know Mercury Theater, right? Yeah. And so when I was trying to think of something, because we all take turns directing and editing and playing different roles, and sometimes we play 4 or 5 roles, and so. I chose that as my directorial debut. I directed before, but in Hollywood Radio Players, I chose to do War of the Worlds, and we have over 11,000 views, which I think is amazing for something like this. And I gotta say, I'm pretty proud of it. Really proud of it.
I mean, it's the thing I was alluding to before is, maybe more younger people will learn about radio and get excited. And
well, actually, yes, and that's what we were kind of touched on that, because we are pretty amazed that we have young people, because I didn't grow up with radio. Neither did Michael. We're not of that generation. My parents were, my grandparents were. But we weren't that generation. But because we came at this kind of from Michael and I did from 2 different similar directions, though, because I was living in London, and I was studying in London and living there for several years. And I used to listen to BBC because they had classic radio, but it was new. It wasn't old. It was new, right? Yeah. And they still do it, because I went back and taught for a very long time in England. And whenever I was there, which I only stopped doing about 4 or 5 years ago, I would listen to the BBC, and they would have all these new shows on. I mean, it's very respected. And,
it's a whole thing.
It's a whole thing there where it is not here. But then back here,
that's unfortunate that. Well, of course, you're making one of the reasons I mentioned is you're making it a thing.
We're making it a thing, right? And Michael had a similar thing. He too studied in England. Wow. And he too listened, but then he came back here, and he was listening in the era that Star Wars was on radio.
That's right.
And I was listening. I came back and I was listening to. I was on very late night, and they had all the great old stuff like Fibber McGee and Molly and the Shadow and all of these wonderful shows. But then there were new shows, and so I became a radio nerd, and so did Michael, and so did the rest of the people in our group. So that's kind of how that all started.
That is really something. Well, as we get towards the conclusion of this episode, is there anything you want to share with the audience that's important to you now, whether it be radio or supporting the writer's strike or any issues?
Yeah, we just had a big discussion about that today. Like, because of what we do,
right,
we are allowed to work,
right,
because ours is for a charitable organization, and we are reenacting classic radio plays from the 20s, 50s. Right. And the writing that I do, because I am also a writer, the writing that I do for this is not
new
scripts. I do, write the intros, and I write the extraneous, whatever, all that sort of thing. But we're not affected yet by the writer's strike in Hollywood radio plays. We are affected in every other way by the writer's strike, and then I'm sure, upcoming DGA strike, and then after that could be the actor's strike.
Right.
So it's a time of great turmoil and great change, and I'm hoping each one is brief.
Mm-hmm.
People need to work.
They do.
Earn a living. Not everybody is rich. I mean, only a tiny percentage of the industry is actually wealthy. Most people are not. They are middle class or below. And so they really have to work.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping this doesn't last very long. Unfortunately, it is absolutely necessary.
That's what I want to ask you about. I mean, these are connected strikes because they concern some of the same issues, right, involving technological.
Oh, totally. They each echo each other. But, the strike happens when you're in your contract negotiations, which we are going into ours June 7th. But the strikes happen because, they can't agree.
Right.
And then you vote to have a potential strike, and then they still can't agree. Usually that triggers an agreement, but it didn't with WGA. And so then they vote again, which they voted 2 nights ago. I was waiting at midnight to see what happened. And although we knew earlier in the day that it was a done deal, but they had to officially do it at midnight. And then DGA, I don't really know what their schedule is. I know it's quick, it's soon. And then ours, like I said, is we enter negotiations June 7th, and we shall see what happens.
My limited understanding, I mean, there is a tech issue in that people aren't getting money because there's been some cheated out of. Is this true? Because of, I don't quite understand.
I don't really look at it as cheating.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because of streaming or because of, I don't know, because of
evolution. It's an evolution of the industry.
Right.
With so many changes.
Right.
The lessening of residuals from
that's what I meant, yeah.
From prime time, the increased numbers from streaming. There's over 500 scripted shows, over 500. And, you just look at it, you go Hulu and Netflix and Amazon, and you just look at it, and there's so many.
Folks have to get paid, right? That's important.
It would be nice if people got paid, and the creators of all this content, right? The creators of the content are the ones who are not being appropriately paid.
That's right.
You can't make the corporate structure cannot make the content. Only the creators can make the content.
That's right.
So it's imbalanced.
Totally imbalanced.
So it needs to get balanced.
Yep.
And again, I don't look at it as people are being cheated. I look at it as there has been a sea change in the industry, and everybody needs to be appropriately compensated, and they are not being appropriately compensated. Everybody, from all the creators, the actors, and
Not just writers, but actors.
oh no, the actors and the directors
and people that work on the sets, I'm sure.
well, they have a a different pay structure.
That's true.
But if you're on a series and say you're a gaffer, which is the lighting guy, but and you say 5 years ago you were on a series and you were the gaffer, which is a very prestigious position, and because it's very technical and very knowledgeable and is responsible for the look of the project. And 5 years ago you were doing a series and you were doing 22 episodes. That's a very nice living.
It is.
Now, if you're on a show and it does 6 episodes, that's not a nice living. No living. Bare bones. And so that needs
to change. Yeah, that's it.
To somehow change, and the employers need to be willing to recognize that without the creatives,
nothing happens.
Nothing happens, right?
Nothing gets made without you folks. Yeah.
No, nothing. Nothing. And so anyway, that's it in a nutshell. It's very complex, but really it's simplistic. That is it. I don't know. I was thinking of a friend of mine who's wearing a ring right now. I can't say these words on this show, but it's
okay.
But I can't say the words, but it's a very.
Our show is not G-rated, so you could say.
Oh, I can't say it, and I won't do that.
Okay.
But it's a very excoriating phrase on this particular ring, and she is a very major composer, and I just laughed when I saw this ring. I'm like, oh boy, here we go. So that's it. I mean, that's basically what's going on with this strike, and then the potential 2 upcoming strikes. And so if people start seeing a lot of reruns,
well, to remind people it's for a good cause, and it's
for a good cause, and
I really want to thank you again. This has been I learned a lot in this episode, and
we really talked about Almost Summer.
We didn't get into Almost Summer. We're going to have a separate episode just about Almost Summer, though. So that's. I
think you want Marty and I to do one together, right?
Yes. Really, because that's an incredible. That film deserves its own episode.
I agree. I really. Almost Summer was another one of those.
Yeah, totally innovative.
Totally innovative, and it was another one of those surprises. And you look at your bibliography, so to speak, of films, and you think, well, there was that one that I thought was going to be like the hit and win Academy Awards, and like nada. And then you go to another one, you think, well, it was a cute little film, right? And then it's The Legend, and you can't. There's no way of figuring it out. Nobody ever knows.
You can't predict it, really. You just, I guess, do your best to predict it.
You think, oh my God, that latest Marvel film is going to be this. No, sank like stone, right? And then you have these little tiny movies that are major hits. You just do not know.
Like that one. So Lee Purcell, thank you, and we will return and
thank you, Mitch.
Discuss. This is again your generosity, and I'm glad we talked about current events and things and radio. So to be continued. Thank you.
Yes, I would like. Can I just get a plug-in for
yes,
the
of course.
Play? So if people would like to see our radio shows, it's and you see them, and we call it Radio You Can See because you can. That's and you go to HollywoodRadioPlayers.com. You look at our menu, you pick a show, you click, takes you right to our YouTube channel. We're all over social media, but that is the easiest way to see our shows.
Hollywood Radio Players, thank you. Thank you, Lee Purcell.
Really great. Thank you so very much. I appreciate it. How do I get out of here? Because